So this is a texture that I brought in. I showed you guys last time there's a website, I think it's cgtextures.com. You can get tons of free photographic textures. There's no copyright restrictions on them. If you do use them, you would obviously be manipulating them in some way because you need to change the colors, the contrast, and whatnot. So you can bring in the JPEG itself and go over here to layers and double click on it. When you first bring in the JPEG, the layer is going to be locked. What you can do is either you can duplicate this layer by clicking and dragging it to the new layer icon, or if you don't mind working over the original, you can double click and it'll convert this to its own layer. I think I mentioned last time that I like to have a duplicate just in case I mess up, so I'll work on the copy here. And so you can make some adjustments with the layer style window. You can add color overlays and use the different blend modes to change the colors. And the opacity determines how much of the original image shows through. The other thing you might want to try is the gradient overlay. So if you click on this, you could use one of these preset ones, but they're pretty hideous, so I would imagine you would make your own. So you can put in some different colors. And actually, if you find something you like, you can make a new one and it gets saved to your preset so you can get it later. And then just like with the color overlay, you can do multiply or screen or some of these other things just to see how it changes the image. So I'm going to do another copy and show you all something else. There are other things that you can do to the layer itself and manipulate the colors within it. If you go to Layer and Image, Adjustments, and Gradient Map, this will take colors that are in the image and replace them with the colors you have in a predefined gradient. So if you want to change the gradient, you click on the existing one, and just like with the layer styles, you can choose a specific group of colors. So I can have it go from a light red to a dark red. So this is kind of a quick way to colorize the image using a limited color palette. One thing that you might want to make note of is with the layers, you can make adjustments directly to a layer like I have here, and you can see when I've made the adjustment, that layer is reflecting the changes I've made. So I can't go back to what it was before unless I go way back in the history. Another option here would be to go to Layer and do a new adjustment layer. And you get the same options as you do under Image, but you're going to have a separate layer with these features on it. So I do Gradient Map, it's going to give me a Gradient Map layer, and I can do the same thing. I can put a gradient on it, but this time that layer is basically a mask on the layer beneath it, and I can always turn it off. I can delete it So if I know I need to make edits, it might be a good idea to have any effects and styles in a separate layer. Another thing that I personally like to do, the gradient map feature is really neat, but sometimes I want to really isolate two colors and make an image specifically out of just the two colors that I've chosen. So making a duotone image. That is something that you can't do directly from an RGB or a CMYK image. You actually have to take your image, make it into grayscale, and then you'll have the option to change it to duotone. So right now while I'm in RGB, I'm going to go to image adjustments and black and white. And I mentioned last time the black and white feature, you can only do it while you're in RGB mode. But what it allows me to do is adjust the lightest lights and the darkest darks according to the colors that make up the image. So I'm just moving some things around to get the contrast that I want. And then what I'll do, and you have to make sure like this is what you want, so you might need to do a save as before you do this. I'm going to change the mode to grayscale. And it'll ask it, do you really want to do this? I have more than one layer, so do I want to merge the layers? Yes. Do you want to get rid of the colors? Yes. So now I just have this black and white image. Now when I go up to image and mode, I have this option of duotone. And when that option is chosen, I can put in specific colors. What this is doing is it's emulating the printing process. So I talked a little bit before, I believe, about Pantone colors and the way printers use ink. I'm essentially doing the same thing, but on my computer screen. You can do monotone all the way to quadrone, 1 color, 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors. I'm going to do 2 colors for now. This box on the right hand side is the swatch color, so I can click on that and I can pick colors here. If I'm using Pantones, I can go to color library and pick a specific Pantone color and add that. I'll do the same for the second one down here. And right now I have 2 colors in it, but the 2 colors are going into the exact same places. So it's just adding those 2 colors together as if they're printed on top of one another. What I want to do is I want to change it so that some of the light areas are one color and the dark areas are another color. And that's what these 2 boxes on the left hand side do. So I can click on one of these and adjust the curve. And when I do that, I'm changing the points where the curve, I guess the amount of light and dark that is going into certain areas according to where the curve is. So I used to be really good at math in high school, and I'm sure if you are really into it, you might be able to figure this all out mathematically. I just like to play around with it and see what happens. So I've got 2 different curves now, and the colors are going into those areas in different ways. Now another reason I like working in duotone is because I also like using halftones. And if you've ever looked at a magazine or especially a newspaper and you've taken a magnifying glass over an image, you'll notice that that image is made up of little dots of C cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. And so the halftone feature, whether you're in Photoshop or Illustrator, when you apply that, it's taking an image and breaking it down into those three colors and using dots to determine how much of that color is going into certain areas. If I do it now, I've only got two colors to work with, so when I do the halftone, it's going to be dots of just two different colors. So for that one, I'm going to go to Filter and Pixelate and Color Halftone. And just like in Illustrator, you have the option of the radius. Remember, the radius is the size of the dots. So I'm going to start off at 8 and see what that does. And so it breaks everything down into these circles just using those two colors. I can do the same thing with a full color image. So I'm going to take a different one and just see what it does. So Filter, Pixelate, Color Halftone. And this time it's going to use these 4 channels. Each one is going to represent one of the 4 print colors. So now when I zoom in, you can see that it's a combination of those 4 colors, and the way they overlap produces the overall color that's seen. So those are the main features that I like to use. Of course, with Filter, there's a lot of other things that you can try. So that's why I say maybe by showing you guys this, it'll inspire you to try some other things out on your own. Let's say that this image is something I want to use. I can save this as a Photoshop document and put it directly into Illustrator. So if I go back to Illustrator and go to File and Place, I can find that document. And bring it in. The advantage to doing this is if I have the image open, as long as it's not embedded into the file, I can click on the link to the original Photoshop file. Sorry, edit original. And it'll take me to this file so I can make edits in real time. The downside to this is a Photoshop file is a lot larger than a JPEG. So I would suggest if you have an image and you know you've got it the way you want it, just go ahead and save it as a JPEG and bring it in. So that way you're not using a lot of RAM as you're working on your file. Are there any questions about any of the things, either perspective or, yeah?
Does duotone make file size smaller?
It can, because it's not using as many different pixels, so you're kind of simplifying things. So yeah, it's possible. You can also play around with the size of the halftones. So if you want the halftones to be less apparent, you can make the radius smaller, so the dots are smaller. Ariel, did you have a question?
For the mock-ups, can we do half and half Illustrator and Photoshop?
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? All right.